Can you change your feed ration through agronomy? That's what we're going to talk to on this episode of Blueprint to Yield. We're here at the Extreme Ag Data Conference here in Davenport. It was a great opportunity to hop on here with you, Luke. We got to work together. We started last fall?
Yeah, last fall, late November, we started working on some wheat.
Yeah, so let's start off. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your farm, who you are, where you guys are based out of, and see what we can go down that road a little bit.
So we're a 1,400 cow dairy southeast of Atlanta, Georgia. Reached out trying to figure out how to be more efficient on growing higher quality, higher tonnage feed for our cows. And I felt like we had a lot of issues that we were trying to address. Had a hard time trying to find anybody that could help me answer my questions. So I reached out and connected with Calibrated to try to help answer some of our questions, and have led us down the path we're on today that's helped us move in the right direction.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. And, from me being in the Midwest, primarily focused on row crops, I've learned a lot being able to work with you and learning about feed rations and dairies and all the other things and if you think about silage production, whether it's in your wheat you chop or your corn silage, it's a pretty intense process that's would you say pretty hard on the ground?
Very intense, high traffic, compaction.
Yep.
When the crop's ready, you got to get it out. So depending on the year, you can definitely do a lot of damage to your soil.
Yeah. So let's just start kind of at the beginning. I guess from your point of view, would you be willing to talk a little bit about the tests we started to pull and looking for the answers, whether that's from some of the rapid soils and sap we've done through New Age, and as well as like the pattern test that we've looking more at the biology?
Yeah, so we started out pulling rapid soil and some sap samples, and we started realizing right off what our issues were with higher nitrogen levels in the soil from heavy manure application.
So you're reusing your dairy manure water, irrigating with it, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Through center pivot.
Through center pivot. So that's one of the cool things, I think, with the rapid soil. We got to see just how much nitrate was there, as well as some of the sodium and chloride that you kind of already was thinking about was causing some issues. Yeah. So, that was kind of our foundational thing to look at the minerals. And, a lot of times I think we don't think about nutrients when they're excessive, creating problems, but that's very much the case with the repeat use of some of this dairy manure water as your fertilizer source.
Yeah, it's something that just keeps coming. So you got to figure out how to deal with it and manage it the best you can to keep moving in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the, I guess we'll talk first about, the high, I think we'll start with maybe the cations. So cations, you got calcium, mag, potassium, and sodium. And one of the big things that stuck out was the sodium's competition, primarily with your calcium and then potassium.
Yeah, so we realized that we were binding up a lot of the calcium in our soil, definitely with the high nitrate levels, and through that we were able to make corrective actions through putting in products with our herbicide pass and through Y-drop to help supplement nutrients that we may have had in the soil, but they were bound up.
Yeah. And if I remember right, we on your base fertility Rex. So let's start there. We'll start with your dry fert spread. So your typical program with dry fert was K-Mag, potash.
Depending on the farm, on my manure ground, we just put out a little ammonium sulfate. And let it ride because we had enough fertility there. We felt like to grow a good corn crop. The dry land and other farms that don't get manure, typical NP and K program.
Yeah, yeah. And so really the biggest change up we made on your ground that's getting the dairy manure water, we basically added sulfur plus and a little bit of humic in some of those cases.
Sulfur plus, humic, fulvic.
Yep.
And that's pretty much it.
Yeah. You know, the goal was not to really spend much more money. And I think maybe that was one of the points of confusion, maybe a little bit. You got money to spend because when you can influence the tonnage, being you're on limited resources with ground and wanting to drive more efficiency with your feed ration or your silage, we could have spent a little more, but we was trying to be really conscious of the dollar spent. And the reason I think we really led with Sulfur Plus, it's got a strong fulvic portion with it as well, you know, so it offsets those. And you know, for the listeners out there, the high nitrate is really hard on your fulvic fraction or your active carbon in your soil. It really burns it up. So we really led with a strong carbon program, and the biggest nutrient limiting factor really was calcium as a whole.
It was.
Yep. So we move into we started to pull a few pathogen tests. We looked at some of the stuff we did with pattern and looked at standard fertility with that, right? But we looked at some pathogen loads with that.
Right.
Yeah. And what was your common trend on disease?
Typically northern corn leaf blight.
Yep.
And then I don't know if it was necessarily a disease, but plant nutrient imbalance in the plant. We would sometimes see the plant firing up prematurely from the bottom up.
Yep. I think when we looked at your carbon pools and stuff, I think that was the biology, the excess nitrate and biology using the plant as a carbon source to feed itself. And so it's one of the reasons I think we led so heavily with carbon, start to finish in all your in-furrows, wide drop, foliar passes, your dry fert pass. We tried to really stress the carbon because of like you said, with your manure being such a repeat thing, you got to get rid of it somewhere. We are using carbon to offset that high nitrate load.
That's right.
Yeah. So we talk, one of the things I think's interesting when we moving along we kind of used some biology in furrow. You played around with it and some foliar passes as well as the wide drop. But that's a hard one for, I think, farmers in general to wrap their head around of like, okay, well, how's this going to do anything for me? But biology is, we spend all of our time researching it. It's really powerful in delivering nutrients to the plant. It delivers all the antioxidants and the stuff that drives nutrient quality or plant quality, grain quality. Tell us a little bit about what you've seen with incorporating the biology into your program.
I felt like it helped with nutrient availability, get more of what I had in the ground into the plant. I felt like we saw better plant health this year. We actually cut back on a fungicide pass. We also saw some pretty big starch numbers from I felt like in the feed ration.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a combination of all the things that we did, the calcium, the biology, and the carbon and everything. Yeah. But it was definitely it was a year for the record books on our farm.
Yeah, and you had record yields, but you also had a good environment this year, right?
We did. We did have above average rainfall early on. Later on, it did get hot and dry on us, but I felt like I saw stay green in the plant this year, like I haven't seen in years past, and I felt like it was the biology and the carbon and other stuff that we used that played a role in that.
Yeah. And the one thing we probably haven't talked much about that we changed stuff up a little bit was sulfur. Because of all the nitrogen and being applied, we probably started talking to you about assimilation, and you probably thought, what are you guys talking about, assimilation? But can you give us your take on, like, when you see the SAP report and you see that excess ammonium and nitrate? I really think that's a systems approach of the biology, carbon, but it's pretty big. I think sulfur's got to be talked about when we discuss the whole process.
Oh yeah, so I didn't realize how much nitrogen that we had that was that stayed in the ground year round. I mean, I knew we got some nitrogen from the manure, but seeing the levels in the plants and how much was in the plant, and then seeing the rapid soil samples, seeing what I knew I had levels in the ground, but seeing what the availability of it was, and it helped open my eyes up. Even though we have it in the ground, don't necessarily make sure it doesn't necessarily mean it's available.
Right. Yeah.
And by that sulfur, I felt like it helped open up and let other nutrients that we had in the ground become more available also.
Oh, it's a great point. I think it's a very real thing. It's taken me a while to wrap my head around just how much sulfur sometimes it takes. And, Jared Cook at Calibrated, he says what your water is, your soil becomes. And in your case, applying the manure water, your ground becomes very nitrogen rich, very not dominant nitrogen.
It does. It's not a problem a lot of people understand how to deal with.
Yeah. And I think as we consult with more farmers like yourself, we've learned that, it's usually easier for us to work on a depleted soil than it is one that has imbalances on the excessive side. So this has been a learning experience for all of us here at Calibrated, and been super happy to kind of go on this ride with you. So I guess, to give, other dairy farmers or other livestock producers an idea, you really, the main tweaks you made, we incorporated carbon into every pass, basically, whether liquid or dry.
Correct.
And I guess I think it'd be beneficial for, the listeners, just take them through what you did kind of in your furrow, how you tweaked maybe your Y drop. Was Y drop new to you this year?
Y drop's new to me this year. First time I'd ever used it.
Cool. Well, what was your experience with that, and how we put together a plan? We was then at that point pulling rapid soil and sap, right, to kind of guide that pass a little bit.
So on my non-manure ground, I thought it helped getting that nitrogen out later, closer to when the plant's more rapid uptake was.
Yeah.
But then we also did the same. We put out sulfur and calcium in the Y drop on my manure pivots.
Yep.
And I felt like the response from that was probably the biggest thing we saw.
Yeah. And that also, I think we trialed running. We had carbon, I think, in that pass, but we also trialed on some farms running the BioAg-E in that pass as well.
We did. I had some left over from that we had used previously, and I said, well, I might as well use it up.
Yeah.
And so I threw it in the tank, and that's where I saw some of the big stay green plant health benefits. Was where I put that.
Yeah.
In my Y drop pass.
While we're talking about biology's influence on stay green plant health, on the biology part, let's fast forward to what we talked about and looked at this Saturday. Luke came up to my place, and we was looking at the soil pathogen loads of several rooting diseases where you ran different rates of BioAg-E, starting, I think some of them even was applied to your wheat plus your corn. Talk about the rates you applied where we really drove out rooting diseases compared to where we took them down a little bit but not a lot compared to farms we didn't even touch. Maybe explain that a little bit.
So what we saw, which I would have thought would have been my highest pathogen load, been corn on corn for 20 years.
Yep.
And I went out there, I learned of the earth optic soil test that we could do. We went out there and pulled it. And when I got the results back, I couldn't believe it, because that was the lowest pathogen load on any of my fields I had, and the only thing I can go back to is we started last fall on the wheat, putting out BioAg-E, and then we used it on our corn crop, and then I had used it again this fall on my wheat crop, and so I probably put close to a gallon on this farm over a year's time, and the rhizoctonia, the pythium, the fusarium, and all that the levels were 0 to barely any in the soil, and that was kind of another aha moment that.
Yeah. It's like the Eddie off Christmas Vacation. It's like the gift that keeps on giving, Clark. You know, I think that but to not divert away from that, then fields where maybe we didn't have that bigger rate ran, we just got a couple quarts out, 48 ounces.
Yep.
We didn't see quite that reduction yet.
We didn't see. No, we had one farm still grew really good corn, but the levels hadn't dropped quite as much. But we only put like a quart in for and another 48 ounces with the pre-emerge, and that was it. But obviously it did something because of the corn yield and the numbers that we saw from that corn when we fed it out.
Yeah. I think that's interesting because we've been preaching and teaching this through other Blueprint to Yield episodes. In our short videos, we really talk about it in our winter meetings here of how we can don't really have a fungicide that we're applying. It's just a beneficial inoculum that we're able to measure that reduction. So it was, for me, I get this question a lot at Calibrated. It's like, well, yeah, you proved that in Idaho and you've shown that in Illinois and Iowa, but will it work in my farm? And my answer is yes. I mean, microbes are microbes. We can influence them all different ways, but I think it goes back to the systems approach. We figured out calcium and sulfur were limiting. We figured out carbon was limiting, and then we brought the biology in. If we would have done that backwards, I don't know if, in my opinion, I don't think we would have seen the results like we did. Would you agree it's a systems approach?
I definitely think it's a systems approach. I mean, there's not one thing I think that you could have done standalone and made the difference that we made.
Yeah. So, the excessive nitrate's hard on the carbon. The art of doing corn silage, or your wheat silage, hard on the ground, which when you remove most of the crop, you don't get that residue for the biology to harbor and grow on. So biodiversity, what we find in a whole as we pull these tests, it's lower where we're doing the silage ground. And so I think it's like anything, finding that limiting factor where, okay, you're in a situation where biology doesn't thrive because of how you have to farm to support your dairy, and then we add it back in. It's been a cool thing to go down the road with you on.
Yes, we've learned a lot and hope to continue on that we can pick up some more tweaks along the way to keep getting better.
Yeah, and I think we got a lot to learn yet, and the cool thing, remember talking to you as you started to chop, and I think you was hoping that maybe we would get, was it 3 to 4 ton? You was hoping we would get a benefit. What was the actual end benefit of what you think the change up in Proven got you on tonnage this year?
Well, we definitely had a better environment this year than we had in previous years on growing corn, but I think that we packed more starch into the kernels and had heavier test weight corn, and we saw the results from higher starch levels in our corn silage that we've been feeding.
So let's back. What did your silage corn yield check at?
This particular farm, the first pit that we fed out, it was around 27, 28 ton at 35 dry matter.
Cool. And you, the big difference you've seen year over year, and we got like you said earlier, we got a long ways to go to get through all your silage, right? To tell the full story. But preliminary starch year over year was how much difference? And I know it varies between dry land and irrigation, but if you want to maybe explain that a little bit of what you've seen there.
This isn't the first good year we've ever had as far as rain. and weather, growing crops.
Yep.
And I'd say, a good year in and out average is probably 38-40% starch. And this year we were consistent on this farm, 45-46% starch, and that's numbers that I've never seen before.
Yeah.
Went back and my nutritionist was thrilled because we were able to save a good 3 pounds a head a day of ground corn just because of the amount of starch that was in the silage, and that added up to significant savings for our farm.
Yeah. And the big thing I kind of learned from Saturday from talking to you, obviously there's a difference in the ration from your irrigated to your dry land, or where your manure versus commercial fertilizer. But on when you was feeding the what was at the front of your pile, you had told us that it was close to 30 cents per head per day on that silage.
Yeah, the one farm that I'm referring to, it's a farm that's farther away, so it's in a pit by itself, and we did average 30 cents per head a day. But we've also been limited on forage in the past.
Yeah.
So we were actually, we just figured the savings conservatively with the amount of corn silage that we normally fed. But we were able to push a few more dry matter pounds into the cows, which actually added up to a good bit more savings. By being able to feed a higher, because we had higher tonnage, more feed to feed the cows.
Absolutely. So, as I started, I was curious. We met Saturday, and I was running the numbers, and equates to pretty decent money. I mean, you're talking just shy of $3,000 a week in savings.
Yeah, and on a dairy cow ration, those few pennies or cents over a year's time feeding multiple head is it can add up very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think it's been awesome working with you, Luke, because I've learned a lot. And Jared in Idaho, he's been kind of doing. We probably stole some tips and tricks from him, right? That we used on your farm. But it's going to be interesting to try to repeat this next year, see what tweaks we can make and how do we get better. You got any thoughts on what you would like to maybe start to tweak as you've gotten through this season, and what maybe you're going to put the foot on the gas a little more or back off of?
Probably going to try to use multiple sulfur sources, try to overlay some different forms of sulfur to try to find some slower release sulfurs to have some later on in the season, and then probably try to get more calcium.
Yeah.
That's kind of the start, but I think about it pretty regular, so
it
might be a game day decision for me.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's smart, because that's using our whole internals data from this year on how volatile sulfur is, and the smart play getting that, and because within the dairy we talk about your compaction a lot. And water infiltration problems. Well, that's kind of what I struggle with in Illinois with our heavy clay soils. Probably not to the extent you do, but that's why we want that slow elemental in the background, just to keep feeding all the time, and we don't kind of insulate ourselves against risk of losing it due to the environment changes or weather changes. So, feeding all the time, and we don't kind of insulate ourselves against risk of losing it due to the environment changes or weather changes. So. So is there anything all the time, and we don't kind of insulate ourselves against risk of losing it due to the environment changes or weather changes. So, So is there anything all the time, and we don't kind of insulate ourselves against. So, So is there anything all the time, and we don't kind of insulate ourselves against. So, So is there anything all the time, and we don't kind of insulate ourselves against. So, So is there anything kind of insulate ourselves against. So. Yeah. So is there anything to kind of insulate ourselves against? So yeah. So is there anything? 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 Yeah. So is there anything?